everybody, my name is Jessica Holyfield. I'm a professional dancer, professional dance choreographer, and dance educator based out of the southeast of the United States, and we're taking a look at Street Man Fighter's leader class, which is ZICO's track New Thing. This was the super viral one that went off with Vata, and of course there's some scandals that came along with that we may touch on briefly here in this video. We're going to be taking a look at the choreographic selection. So I have my pen and paper here, and we're going to be looking at every choreographer of the leader group, kind of seeing how it stacks up. I know Vata's was the chosen choreo, and he became the chosen dancer as well for the main dance rank mission. So I know that going in, so some of my feedback may be tailored towards comparisons of why his was picked over others or things like that, or what my preference would be as well. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. First up, we have Deukie from YGX.
기분이 째져 에이 후sob의 스트레스 환경뱀이 터누가져 튀어 잘 되면 셀럽 못 되면 평생 위셀러 내 개성은 시대를 안타커스 나는 세핑 모든 게 다 세핑 옷에 엿을 걸쳐도 브랜드 묻는 데이 I'm too sexy 헌집 주고 산책 프리미엄이 붙어 2배 3배 4배 나는 세핑.
That was really fun. Okay, taking a look back here, we are from the get-go. I feel like a lot of people may carry that that chill aesthetic, you know, pretty laid back with a lot of new school pockets. What I mean by that is because the track is a new school sound. And I love the do-do-do-do, like, I like the timbre and the choice of the rhythmic patterns in the back. That's really fun. So I feel like we're going to see a lot of similar execution in the grooves, which could make it trickier, make certain choreography stand out more, or people will be tailoring towards a particular choreography because it matches the essence of what they're naturally bringing to the table anyway. So I would say Deukie, I really like how he's choosing to do more of a front glide with a little ISO. Really fun, super groovy as he goes to the front. I will say there was just a simple baby lag of choice that he made in that one little moment before he set up here. Nothing too big, but because it's the leaders, I feel like they have to be held to a certain scrutiny level of accountability. They can't make as many mistakes as the others, but I know for me they're human and that happens. So if someone doesn't have choreography that matches quite the aesthetic of the song, that's totally fine, because this isn't everybody's cup of tea, and that is okay. I like that. Yeah, I like how he integrated both of those sounds. Yeah, that's cool. I will say how he decided to kind of bring this out. I think it's an interesting choice because there's not really anything that's matching that, but it still worked. Yeah, so it's having this feels, I would feel like this class is going to demonstrate the most viral tendencies because the track just sounds, you know, it has that kind of viral, it has a viral sound to it. And I know that with Street Woman Fighter, that's what happened with both seasons. And I know the second season's ongoing and it didn't happen during this time, but that's just the ongoing trend. The leader class, their routine tends to pop off the most, is what we've normally realized in this show or this series of shows. So I think that we're going to see a lot of these grooves switch from side to side, but something that I look at, and I actually mentioned this about Vata's in particular, she likes to, she creates her grooves and they end up going on both sides. What's interesting about them is they're interesting. They're not your basic grooves that you just see normally as like filler moves for transitions or movements that you see normally in an intermediate beginner routine. So I think that it's going to play an interesting role here, what we see here. I have seen Vata's piece. These are the first time I'm seeing everybody else's, and it's the first time I'm seeing his next to everybody else's. So I think this is going to be a very fun comparison. So I like the fact that he is choosing to go both sides, and he's choosing interesting ways to transition across the floor. That's fun how he picked up the pace because there's that. So his grooves picked up the speed, and I really like that choice. And that swish swing, it's a new thing. I love it. I love that do-do-do. Fun. has a lot of really nice moments. It goes sexy, and he lifts his shirt up a little bit. I will say, I mean, if we're looking in terms of comparison, because I feel like that's what everyone's doing for this challenge, is I feel like we're kind of rocking a similar groove or similar pattern pocket in dynamics for the majority of this breakdown. And I wonder if that could work against him here more so than if he was making different choices, maybe smoothing it out. I know he picked up the pace, which I think was super reasonable, and I like that choice. I just feel that it has this for the whole course, even though he's doing different movements. So I'm wondering if, because there's no breathers, it's a once you lose that groove, you can kind of mess up the rest of it, you know? I love that. Set, bing. I love that. All in all, this is a very solid run. I'm going to put him right in my middle. He's my benchmark here. But I would say that's definitely competitive. If I were to look at, you know, a typical routine, would I want to learn this? Yeah, I think that was great. I think you can definitely showcase yourself as an artist. And I think there's a lot of potential to kind of make it your own, which I think is a really good quality to have for a main dancer mission. So let's go ahead and look at the next one. It's Vata. We know him. Now this move right here, we have had many scandals about that move, and we will get into it because I know some of you are curious of my perspective on the plagiarism case between ATEEZ and Vata with that move. I know this one. Okay, let's dial it back because I know this one's probably going to take the longest. Let's get into it. So I really like this one. It matches the music fabulously. I also like Deukie's from YGX. I liked his too. Honestly, I would have learned both, regardless of which one got picked at this point in time. But remember, we still have 6 other choreographies to look at. So taking a look here, what he's doing is he's setting up like he's getting on a motorcycle. He reps his foot and then he proceeds to glide. Now this posture in this sequence, this front glide, is the plagiarized move in question. So let me give you the rundown if you don't know what this is. I've heard both sides, a lot of information from both sides. So I feel like I can present a empathetic ear to both. I'm going to remain neutral to it because it's not 100% applicable to me, but as a dance educator who does experience, and I do personally know, choreographers affiliated with what has happened, I feel like I have a natural understanding of, I do have a natural butterfly effect that ends up happening in my world because of this situation. Very small, but it still happens. So what the situation was, if you don't know, is this move, this glide, was something that back in 2019 ATEEZ did for Say My Name, this little, but it was slow, boom, boom, boom. Choreographer, even though his name was Anjay, he technically didn't do it. One of his assistants, Josh Smith, was the one who incepted the move for ATEEZ. They made it a challenge on TikTok pre-COVID, pre-2020. Now, going into here, this is dated 2022, right? And Vata does this, it pops off, gets super viral. Let me make this note. I really don't think this would have been as huge of an issue if this did not go so viral. ATEEZ's did not go as viral when they did their challenge, yet this one's getting really viral. That's what they were upset with, was the fact that they were both deemed challenges. They were both technically in the Korean pop dance industry, and Vata apparently is affiliated with ATEEZ. He is friends with some of the members. A couple things I want to note about this. I'm not going to really get super deep into this, but I do want to make you just known of both sides of it. With Vata, he claims that he did not get inspiration from ATEEZ. That could very well be the case. Whenever you do a front glide motion and you do this arm, when he created it, he probably didn't think, this would be really cool, and I'm citing my source to ATEEZ. There's a very good chance he may have seen it once in passing, twice in passing, maybe not even from them, from somebody else. The only reason why it's this sensitive is because it's in the same industry. If what ATEEZ did was in America, or what Vata did was in America, it wouldn't have been the same thing. But it's because he was able to capitalize on the virality of that move influence, and ATEEZ couldn't and didn't. Now, is that fair? I think it's kind of a toss-up. I think that there are a ton of similarities, and I think we can't negate the possibility. I'll put it that way. We can't negate the possibility that Vata was influenced subconsciously or consciously. I think there was a sense of influence here. Do I think that he made the conscious effort with ATEEZ while making this move? No, I don't believe so. There's a chance that he's telling the truth. He's like, no, I wasn't thinking about them when I made the move. Very good chance that is the case. Now, do I think that if he said, yes, I took it from ATEEZ and all that, my question I want to pose to all of you is, do you think that Mnet would have allowed him to come out and say that? That's something that I want us to chew on for a second as well, because regardless of the results of whether what's truth, what's lie, what's this, what's that, Mnet has an image they want to maintain, right? They like drama, but they don't like that kind of drama. Remember, they like drama within the show because they can control the outcome of that as well. They know how to manipulate it, how to utilize it, but also we're able to see reconciliation based on the dramatic script of how they filter out through the editing. They can make it look great, or they can make it look like a hot mess express. In this case, this was an uncontrolled hot mess express that they were drug into because of this. And this was, at this point in time, not now, but at that time, one of the most viral things to come out of Mnet on the social side. So do you think they're going to retract or make it be like they're the villains because that in and of itself, he's admitting fault that he plagiarized from a K-pop group? I would say unlikely. Good, there is a possibility, not saying this is the case, possibility that there's a chance that he wasn't allowed to make a comment on it, you know, or he's gonna have to deny it regardless of his intention. You know, we have to factor that into, there's a lot of back-end stuff, a lot of political stuff that goes on behind the scenes for these types of situations. So that's a big thing to note. Also, do you see how many choreographers are in that room? Now, do any of them have any affiliation with ATEEZ? I can't recall at the top of my head, but ATEEZ is a K-pop group. Good chance that they are affiliated in some way. Do you think that maybe one of them would have said something if that was that huge of a concern as well? Also note, this is one move out of the entire pocket or groove, but it goes back to, I understand why it was such a huge issue, because they were able to capitalize on this move, and this move was really popular and people really took to it because it is captivating. But ATEEZ wasn't able to capitalize on it, even though it made its first appearance on ATEEZ to say my name as a challenge. First appearance as a challenge. I want us to note that as well, you know? Now, is there always the possibility that that move was around before? Absolutely. It's a front glide. And putting your arm in front, it looks like you're riding something. I mean, of course, I've probably seen that many a times. It's not the problem is it's not owned by ATEEZ. I want us to make that very clear. ATEEZ doesn't own that move. Josh Smith doesn't own that move. Anjay doesn't own that move. Nobody owns the move, right? We have to think about the full context of the placement of the move, when timing of it in correspondence to other things that are becoming more popular. It's the essential of, if somebody made a TikTok dance and somebody took some reference to that TikTok dance, they put it to a different song, but theirs got capitalized, but this other person's like, hey, I did that sequence first in the same industry. Does that make sense? Like, it really, I mean, I feel like I can understand both sides 100%. I feel like ATEEZ got more popular in this process because of this as well. So I feel like, I mean, I think it's unfortunate. Do I wish that that wasn't the case? Yeah, of course. But I'm not gonna sit here and say that he was 100% in the wrong for having that. No, you know, if anything, I feel like I can just see both sides. And as an individual who personally knows some of the people involved, but not well enough for me to have any emotional investment. I don't have emotional investment in it, I'll put it that way. So, but keeping it, that was just my, I know I felt like I spent a long time on that because I knew that we needed to address it. Those are my thoughts on it. I would love to hear discussions about this in the comments regarding this. If there's any more insight that you know, if you are a fan of ATEEZ, I want to hear your perspective. You know, for me, I am a fan of ATEEZ. I like their music. I use their music sometimes. And I wish that they were able to find more virality when they did the challenge back then, to where they would have been so popular with it that this wouldn't have been a thing, you know? So I think it's, yeah, I don't know. It is unfortunate that that happened and that they felt that way, because everybody has a right to, you know, they want to be seen. And I feel like with these with challenges, you know, the important thing is if this didn't pop off the way that it did, if literally anybody else's choreo got picked besides Vata, I really don't think it would have been as huge of an issue, because it wouldn't have gotten as popular. Does that make sense? But that's just my thing. Moving on from there. He gets off of it. I like the fact that he finishes out his wordplay. He finishes out the story. We also need to talk about WEDEMBOYZ has always had a trend on this pocket, this vibe. I've seen it in all of their choreography. Sometimes it works, sometimes it does not. This is the case where it works really well. Yeah, so it's very chill, but it's very conversational. That footwork right there, so I've learned this already before, but I will probably need to relearn it. That footwork broke my brain very quickly, because what he ends up doing here is just a mix of hey, who's the best dresser? He does 2 ponies, a kick step touch, and then he brings it back, and then he slowly kicks the leg forward. So it's 2 pony da 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 da. He hits all the syllables, but it's so nonchalant. Yeah, doon doon doon. And if you notice, he is keeping a very linear kind of presence, but he's leaning out. He is creating more of that nonchalant aesthetic. It matches the social media era of the time in which this was filmed. I'm just gonna put it that way. And how he presses those heels out, doom 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 doom. It really feels like he builds it up and pops it out, and he builds it appropriately, which I really like. Now, I'm curious about whenever I get to the dance rank portion of the mission, because these all end up getting more refined. Like this choreo we know is Pix. I'm curious how Vata does it in the dance rank mission compared to here. It does feel a little bit more marked, and I think that is, of course, preference. But look, here goes hit and hit, then he does the same, you know, so he is making those repetitive groove choices, but it's all about how you present it, right? Yeah, so he does a lot of, you know, hit, and he has this kind of chugging, up bounce kind of aesthetic about it, which is really nice. It matches that, but it's not overpowering, and that's very important too. And how he chooses to lean and how he chooses to go into each groove, I really like, because it is, you don't expect it. Like, there's no groove that he does that you expect unless you know it already. Does that make sense? And I think that's something that really catches people off guard, is when you hear the song for the first time and then you see the choreography with the song, it matches really well. So it keeps that playfulness that ZICO's rhythmic tone brings to the table, but you also, it's still very captivating, and it's subtly complex. It's not like complex. It just makes your brain have to think, you know? Because it looks simple, but then when you try to do it, you're like, can I do that? Like, you have to really pay attention to how he's executing stuff, but it's so fun. This is a really fun one to do. And then how he finishes, not a stepping. Yeah. So I would say, all in all, this was definitely really, really fun. Do I think it's astronomically better than what I saw from YGX? Not exactly. I mean, I would say, yeah, I would probably place this one, if I was, you know, doing these outright. This one looks really fun, but I will say I think it's just when WEDEMBOYZ, all of them, when they approach their choreography before it's taught, it really does come across more mellow, more chill, more laid back, which, you know, works in their favor in a lot of cases. I really like this, but I don't think it's like this god tier choreography in comparison to what I've seen so far. But also note, I've only seen one other so far, but I've seen some other ones in other challenges that I'm like, whoa, that's awesome. You know, I think this is a really good balance, and it matches, it matches. I see why it popped off. Yeah, does that make sense? Because I feel like it's very obtainable for the general public, but it's still interesting enough for dancers to do. I think that's the key point in all of this. So I think we're ready to move on. I knew I was going to spend the longest on Vata because of all the scandally things that happened, but we have officially moved past that, and we have moved on to our next dancer, which is 1 million! Kooyoung. So he's really accenting the bass here. That was fun. Okay, I like some of his choices here. This is what I really like about watching these videos in particular, when you see everybody's attack and approach to the track, because what Vata hit is different than what he hit. And I like it, you know. I think both are perfectly fine. Do I think there may have been a couple of moments here in this one that may not have connected as effectively as I think they could to the music? Yeah, but I mean, honestly, I think this was still a solid run, you know? Expect nothing less from the leaders, right? I like his, with that doom, doom, with that drum. It's very repetitive, and so it takes like a heartbeat approach, right? And so I really like, I like his usage of the percussion instrument to get, and use that chest to get lower and lower, and he levels it out. I like the yeah. My only note here is that he does take he takes a more aggressive approach. It's not overpowering to the music, but it's more aggressive. So it's just, I think this is a preferential thing. I don't see any issue with what he's doing. It's just different, right? I like that, you know, how he feels it out. The wordplay on this is really nice. I really like seeing the wordplay whenever a song like this. I think wordplay helps create more focal points and more iconic moments as well, especially when it drops. So I like that. He's holding out. He's creating really nice moments. That was cool. So I think too, something that we're seeing more and more is I really do like his transition choices too. He is thinking through them, or he is initiating and filling out his movement until he's ready to go to the next thing, which I really like. I will say this, do-do-do-do-do. I really liked that. Yeah, dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. That was fun. Yeah, so he hit, so Vata went hit, and he approached it. He hit it, but just a little bit differently. Yeah, so he goes, so he did an arm that was similar, but he channeled it over, and then it goes boom, and then as he drops, he establishes a new groove, which I really like. Yeah, so he is taking time to have moments as he goes up. I like it. I think that's my only time where I feel like, I feel like we could have, because it's upbeat as a little bit more, I think we need to have more of a presence of a groove here. Because he already established a lot of the staccato, or he broke up the dynamics a little bit more, it could justify it a little bit better. It just kind of felt like he was holding and waiting for the sound to happen versus an active choice. I don't need to do anything to that track or that part of the sound, but that's just, remember, that's just my preference. It's just my opinion. Honestly, at the end of the day, it doesn't really carry any value to what's happened in the show because the show's already happened, right? We just get to enjoy it. So I think that's the only part that just felt a little bit, not off, it just felt a little disconnected in comparison to the context of what has already happened, where he heads over. Because the move is it's very simple that he was waiting for. If he took a different approach maybe, or he has you bled into it to where it was more of an accent, because there was still sound happening, I feel like that was an opportunity he could have utilized in a different way. because he is doing a move and then he's stopping and then proceeding to the next one. But I like his vroom. You can just tell that he's waiting for certain parts of the music to hit, which helps with musicality, but he's killing the groove that he's setting up in order to make those moments happen. And I think that's what is kind of making me wish that he approached it just slightly different, but it's still very strong. I like that ending, setbing. That was fun. So I would say my overall note for his, I mean, I think his is still pretty strong. Would I personally have picked that one? It wouldn't be my first pick. And so I would put this one underneath YGX and WEDEMBOYZ for now, but it is not super low on my list. I want you to know that. There isn't any that I've seen so far, but I've only seen 3 that I'm like, ooh, that needs a lot of work. That needs some love, you know? That was still very good, but going and reiterating what I've already mentioned, I think that with his, because the groove never really stops in that upbeat, it makes sense why a lot of them are approaching that kind of groove. And I know with YGX he did it too, and I did make a note saying that maybe exploring a different way of executing in that groove. I think I probably meant make it a little bit more polyrhythmic in while establishing the groove. Don't try to do similar ways of execution. Try to think of different ways to have more legato present while you're still holding up in that vibe. It felt here that he would set up a groove, but then he would cut it off in order to do a different part of the music. So he was very isolated in his layers that he was hitting, which was cool, but do I feel like that was helping keep the heartbeat of the song alive? I feel like it was a little bit stifling to that a little bit, but it was still a really good choreography. I want to note that. I really liked that one. That was cool. We're going to go ahead. Let's move on to our next one. Next is Youngjae. I heard he did his a little too simple. It was just one of those situations. Okay, so I can kind of see what he's referring to. I think here it was still pretty solid, but do I agree that it's a little bit simplistic? Yes. But what I mean is, I'm going to go back to what I said originally near the beginning, is whenever you're doing grooves that repeat on both sides, if you make them interesting or ones that you normally don't use for transitions or as filler or for beginner intermediate individuals, not intermediate, I would say more beginner grooves, I feel that it would carry a little bit more proficiently and it would still keep captivation through that. Now, remember too, it is in the eye of the beholder. It is out of the preference of those who are watching. Remember the strategy taking place. They want to look for something that's not too difficult, but also not too easy. And I feel like he may have learned a little bit too late that his approach may have been a little bit too easy for the leaders, right? I like he's just vibing out in the beginning. Yeah, it does feel like he's just kind of doing a lot of ad-libs in the beginning. That was fun. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Super fun. Yeah, he's taking a very comical effect, but it feels more elementary. Not in a negative sense, but it does feel very simple. Like, follow along, everyone. It feels like that. Tutorial-esque. And then he goes over to the other side. That's what he's giving it off because of what he's giving in his face as well. Yeah, so how he's just building all this, it really feels like he could have utilized these opportunities a little bit different. I think he was thinking about the virality side of the challenge more so than these are professional dancers that could handle a lot more. And there's a lot of people on socials nowadays that are really enjoying the challenge of more complex movement. You know, I really feel like what Vata and Latrice brought, those are pretty intermediate, easily intermediate, and the pockets that each of those have are so different, and it's so there's something a little bit for everybody, right? So the weight of this challenge is not solely on the leaders. Of course, sometimes the sub leader gets some virality out of it too, and it's a very different vibe, and I think that's part of MNET's strategy as well. But looking here, I do agree that this is a little bit too simple because a lot of these moves, because how he's executing it too, there's no extra texture that's helping compensate for the simplistic movement. You know, that's helping with, okay, it makes sense why you chose to do that groove there versus, oh, you can just kind of do any groove and it would still work. I like that. Do-do-do-do-do. It does look like he's hesitating on really becoming confident through the movement. Now we know he's confident. I just feel that it looks like he's marking it just a little bit. And I know that that's not really the case here. It just remember, it just comes across that way. So when he pops off, I like that. Doom, 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 doom. So, you know, and so because, I mean, if he did that here, but he had more complexity in the beginning, I think that that would have been totally fine. Yeah, it's just, he's writing on the ands and the whole counts whenever there's so much we can glean from the different timbres, from the different layers, from the different volumes and crescendos and dynamics that are there. I really feel like there's so much that we can utilize, and it's a lot of wasted opportunity because he's writing on this, on the ands and the whole counts. Even there, even when he did this shoot, it still didn't look 100% committed. Yeah, it just reads, I want to show you my choreo, but I'm not really going to show you. I'm just show you like a little bit. It's what it feels like. But that right there, he pops off a little bit more. Yeah, set, bang. How he ended it was really fine. I like it. It was nice and impactful. I think this build out. Yeah, the doo-doo-doo. Yeah, because when you see, there's very rarely is he doing something that's a single move. Everything has a parent or a mirror to it, and that can also break down the complexity to make it very simple, which I feel like with the fan base of this type of show, I feel like a lot of them can handle a little bit more. But here's the thing, I really feel like everything I'm saying is stuff that I feel like Youngjae has already expressed. So I hadn't seen his choreo, but I did hear about he was feeling pretty regretful of the fact that he made it a little too simple. So I am going off of that more so. His words, most of it his words, not mine. But I'm just in agreement. But honestly, too, lesson learned. Sometimes you have to learn those lessons in this way. And he was able to do a cool routine at the end of the day, too. You know, they ended up doing Vata's, and Vata's was cool. I hadn't seen the concept version of it, but I mean, I've learned the dance, and I really like it. So I feel like he at least got to experience that in some regard, you know. But yeah, so that would be for that one. I would say it is a bit on the simpler side, so I'd have to put that one below the ones that we've seen. But it is not bad. I don't want to say that at all. It really isn't. I think that it has some nice qualities to it. I feel like it's very doable by the general public. I think that it's definitely one where anybody and everybody can be involved in it, and you can add your own flair and aesthetic to it. But do I think, whenever you think about the tiers, leader representation, I feel like there has to be a balance between, remember, we are professional dancers who are competing for a concept shoot and the opportunity to direct and have power, right? And then, but you also, I don't know if at this point it was a criteria you want to make it replicable to the masses. I feel like if it was a criteria, I understand what he was trying to do. He may have swung too far, but if that was just a choice he made for the sake of trying to get his routine picked, I think that it was a tough lesson learned indeed. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to Olchan from MBITIOUS. I've heard some things about his. I heard that his was beautifully difficult choreo, so I wonder if this is the opposite end of the spectrum. We're about to find out.
기분이 째져 에이 후서배 스트레스 환경배 밑으로 누가져 튀어 잘 되면 셀럽 못 되면 평생 we 셀럽 내 개성은 시대를 나타 안타까스 나는 세핑 모든 게 다 세핑 옷에 엿을 걸쳐도 브랜드 묻는 게 I'm too sexy 헌집 주고 센치 프리미엄이 붙어 2배 3배 4배 yeah 나는 세핑.
I love that. Would I choose that? Absolutely not. He did that so beautifully. Why would I try to challenge him doing his own stuff? No, sir. That was wonderful. I'm going to say that was right there, close to what I saw from WEDEMBOYZ from the sub-leader group. That was insane. This was insane. I understand that's very difficult. Just seeing the the expression, this is probably what Youngjae wanted to avoid. Oh-chan was like, F it, I'm gonna do it, you know? But also with Ambitious too, they're kind of still going through that phase at this point of trying to fit in or make something of themselves, right? I feel like a lot of the crews don't really respect them, and so being separated here, they're already at a disadvantage on the respect side. So I feel like that could be a factor into this. I don't know. Just how it goes, doon, that breakdown is so, like, I want to learn this. But that's a 3 to 5 business days kind of learning. It's not a in an afternoon kind of learning, you know? Like, there's a difference in the complexity that you have to figure out. So I would say Oh-chan's probably didn't get picked for the same, like, the exact opposite reason as to why Youngjae's didn't get picked. Just the folding into the, just the stacking. Did you see that? Boom, boom, boom. Ugh, the amount of texture shifts in this was so good. The inflation of the body as he created more of a reverbed wave was, this is beautiful. My waving heart is fluttering here. Boom, doo-doo. You double bass that. And he goes, yeah, like it's nothing. And that's the fear, is it looks like it's nothing to him, but it would take my everything to look like that nothing, you know? So that's another thing. It's all a strategy thing. Yeah. Da-da-da-da, boom. Super simple. It looks so simple. This is not. Yeah, da-da-da-da-da. Now, do I think that he's kind of making not similar choices, I would say. The body parts that he's choosing to collaborate together are similar in nature. Now, with the right leg and the head, he's already done for the wicka wicka. He already did that, but then he did it again for the doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Both look sick, but I did take note, though, that it does look quite similar because the body parts that he chose are the same, but the dynamics in which he chose to express them are different. Doesn't take away the difficulty, but that's just something that I noted while I just watched it. He's also one of the first ones to do da-da-da-da-da-da, you know, he doesn't hit that, get it, he doesn't hit that, he goes he does the lyrics in the back, so it's a really interesting choice, risky choice, and I think it paid off. That was nice. Yeah, da-da-da, bang, da-da-da, it just feels very chill here. Yeah, da-da-da, and then it gets not chill, so it goes around, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, it goes over, and then it goes boom. That was sick. When that womb, when he does that side heel swipe. Whew. Yeah, set, net. That looked like that was nothing to him, hence the problem, right? It's just there's certain choreographies in every group where you look and you're like, that is way too out of my pay grade to do today, you know? It's just that kind of vibe, because remember, they are just coming off of battles at this point. They have multiple things they're prepping for. They've really quick turnaround time on all of this, so I know that they're very sensitive to, you know, the woes. Like, you have to find a balance, and it's really tricky when you only have one season to go off of, right? I think with the second season, they had second season Street Woman, they got Street Man, they had Street Woman to look at for reference. So I think it's kind of, the more that these happen, I think the more prepared those who are in the show may feel, but also the pressure may get bigger and bigger because the virality becomes bigger and bigger every year, you know? So how would I rank this? In my dancer spectator heart, that would be a 100. That was beautiful. Now, and the practicality of it to be chosen, I would say it's pretty on par with Youngjae's, I would say, but for the opposite reason. So I would put, because remember, I'm not just ranking on what the actual what is it, 5, yeah, so it's not based on the complexity solely. You need to have some complexity in there, but you also need to make it to where it's readable, digestible. His did not feel digestible in a viral video. I have to go back, I have to take notes, I have to gawk at it, you know, things like that. You want to have some sense of awe, but you don't want it to be like impractical awe. you know? And I feel like for him, it really showcases his aesthetic as a choreographer. Shout out to him. He was one of the ones, I think, when I did the battles, he's one of the few that I actually ranked and placed beating somebody from PRIMEKINGZ against Trix. I voted for him out of the two. Now, I don't know who won out of that, but I said I put it on 0.75 and I talked through it. So if you're curious about that, you can go back and watch that one. It's on one of my compilations. But so I am mad impressed at not only his fluency of his perspective and identity as a battler, but also his aesthetic and presence as a choreographer. I think it really worked for the song. And it makes me curious what his other work looks like, because if it's this style across different genres, then it may be a different story. But what I'm seeing here, I really like. It's really intentional and it looks very easy, but I know about as anybody else, that mess is not easy at all. Hence why, for me, it would not be my top 3 for that exact reason. But that doesn't mean I can't just love what he just did. That was phenomenal and beautiful. Part of me is like, I kind of wanted them to figure it out. But then part of me is like, nah, it's nice that I get to see it here. So let's go ahead and we're going to move on to our next one. Okay, B2B. J-Rock. I'm curious what he's going to bring to the table here. I really love his battles. Okay, so I liked his grooves. I really liked his grooves. Do I think that it felt palatable? To rephrase that, I feel that a lot of his movements, it felt like a run-on sentence. Does that make sense? Where the sentence made sense, but it was a run-on, so I wasn't able to take any breaks. I wasn't able to really digest any of it. I had to wait till it was over to fully understand what I was watching, right? That doesn't discredit the fact that I really liked his patterns. They were very cool. Do I think that I felt like that it meshed well with the music? I don't believe so. I feel like this would be a case where I could put his movement over another track and it would probably look about the same if you have the same BPM, maybe a couple of the same genres of sound possibly in the production. But that's what it's reading to me, which probably gives it not much marketability with the other members of the class. And also notice some of the choices that he's making. He is focusing a lot on footwork and he's allowing his upper body to accent it, which I really like. I like the fact that he's really taking that approach. He's doing a couple of locking nuanced upper body as well there, at least in that little moment there. Now I'm not gonna call it locking, it's just not locking nuanced, so I wouldn't take the direct inspiration, but it was tap tap. So I like how he's hitting the music, which is really nice. But notice that how he's carrying the same groove throughout the whole thing. And I think that was something that YGX's was showing symptoms of in the very first one that I reacted to, hence why I made the statement I did. So going back here, I really feel like this is a prime example of, because he's maintaining a very similar pocket throughout the entirety of the set, it feels like a run-on, like I've already mentioned, but also it feels like there's not quite any moments that really stick out to me that say, wow, I want to learn this. Like, there's no desirability to do this besides I like his movement, you know? Yeah, it just kind of feels like he's just making footwork choices that stay on beat, stay on tempo. And part of me feels there's a couple moments that a couple moments feel like he had choreographic intention with it, but some of it, he's very fluent in battles. So some of it felt like he was just vibing out and just matching a tempo too, which I feel sometimes you don't want you want choreography to have placement, have structure. You want it to have a beginning, a climax, and an end, right? So I feel like with this one, it makes sense probably why it may not have scored very high on the tier of the leader ranks of the dances. So I would put this one probably on par with Just Shirk and with Ambitious. With Ambitious, I will say his is teetering close to like around 1 million in YGX, but it was just very difficult. And so the reason why I ranked him a little bit lower was just because of the practicality of it for the context of the show and the challenge. Not speaking about the social media side, but more so the concept turnaround and just the amount of time it takes to do it. But with this one, I would kind of put it near Just Jerks a little bit. I think for his, it's just all for different reasons, you know. But honestly, none of these are bad. I want to say that none of these are bad. All of them are really nice in quality, but just not all of them, I think, tailor as effectively to the challenge, I think is kind of my point. And I feel like most of these challenges, you're gonna have that. There's not a bad routine that comes out of any of these crews. It's just, was it practical to the challenge, or do we feel like that they kind of missed a couple opportunities to factor in, to enhance and really utilize their full potential? There's that too, because remember, this is a long time that they have to go. So of course we're going to be seeing some flukes along the way. I feel here was not, it shows that I don't feel like he has as much of a toolkit in choreography as he does in freestyle, and that's okay. Next is Ote from Ted, I think is what it says.
기분이 째져 에이 who's the best dresser 환경뱀이 턴을 가져켜 잘 되면 셀럽 못 되면 평생 we 셀럽 내 개성은 시대를 나타 안타까스 나는 셋대 모든 게 다 셋대.
Interesting that he did this.
I'm too sexy 헌지 주고 셋째 프리미엄이 붙어 2배 3배 4배 나는 셋대.
Okay, I did enjoy that. That was very nice. I feel like it was it was still, I would say, teetering on maybe maybe a little bit simplistic, but I would say it's not as simplistic as what Young Jae brought us. But remember, it's not bad. I feel like it's easier to replicate. But for this challenge you're dealing with not the general public as much as you are with your fellow colleagues, I think is the best way to put it. I like that boom, that kind of pull around. I like that. Who's the best dresser? Really nice here. So he's hitting it, I would say he's kind of hitting the song predictably, you know. I feel like whenever he's like, you know, he's going with the, I would say like the intermediate equivalents of what your go-to. It feels like he's going to a lot of go-to choices for the wordplay, I think is my way, which is why it may feel and teeter on that overly simplistic, because a lot of these types of movements we have already been exposed to. I really like that moment. That was really nice. Yeah. So I feel like because he's already done something similar to that as well, so he's kind of repeating some things that he's already done. Like with the usage of his hips as well as overthrowing his hands. I think his choreo is fine. I've already mentioned that. But I really feel that with this in particular, he didn't really utilize that beginning like some of the other ones did, and I don't think you have to, you know. I feel like you can dive in whenever you feel ready to do so, but a lot of his choices as he chooses to travel, it does feel very whole count or and count, but because he didn't do anything outside of those ands and the whole counts, and he's not really teetering on the different parts of the music that are more than just the typical introductions of the sounds that we're used to hearing. Because when you listen to a song, sometimes it's very easy to know where that bass is. Sometimes it's that do-do-do-do-do. Sometimes that becomes the forefront over the lyrics, and so our ear naturally is inclined to hear that. That's my point when I say that he's hitting a very predictable musicality, and that's what can kind of hinder your movement from looking more complex in a way that helps you, where it's still interesting but practical. Things like that. It has a couple of moments, you know, like this one was really nice, but there's not enough moments throughout that can hold somebody's attention through all of the routine. You know, you want to have something that's eye-catching in the beginning that makes somebody want to stay and watch. Then you want to have things that keep people there, or that keep wanting them to keep going, right? And that's really hard to put those key moments, and it's a strategy in and of itself, and it's a toolkit to be able to do that effectively, especially depending on the audience and the context and the intention. But I'd say this is a very difficult challenge because a lot of these guys are very high caliber in what they can do, and so not everybody. I don't think this is his forte of genre either. And so I want to, and I want you guys. I am aware of that, and I know PRIMEKINGZ isn't on my list yet, but I believe they're next because they're the last ones, I think, after Alt-Day, right? And I know this song is not really in his wheelhouse either, so I'm very curious what Trix is about to bring us. And it's not going to discredit the fact that some of his crump choreo is phenomenal, but this may just be, I'm curious how he's going to explore it, right? And here I feel like I like some of his choices, but I don't think like some of his toolkit was able to be applicable to this project, right? And that's okay. And I think, and I'm very hopeful that a lot of them are able to rise to the challenge in the actual dance rank mission itself. Yeah. So all in all, I mean, I think that was pretty good. If I were to rank it, I would probably put it right with B2B, I think, on my ranking. So honestly, everybody's pretty close together. I'd say the ones that really stick out, I think YGX was really good. Definitely a super practical one. I would say WEDEMBOYZ Vata's was good. I'd say 1 Million's was actually was a very nice start as well. But everybody else, of course, once again, don't let me discredit Ochan. Chef's kiss. I loved what he did. Just not practical for the type of challenge, longevity, and practicality that we will be experiencing in the future. All right, I believe Trix is my last one. Here we go. Starting with a crump posture here.
기분이 째져 에이 후sob에 스트레스 환경배 미터는 가져 튀어 잘 되면 셀럽 못 되면 평생 we 셀럽 내 개성은 시대를 나타 안타커스 나는 셋빙 모든 게 다 셋빙
What he's showing here, I like a lot of his choices. It is interesting that he chose to do the shoot as well that Youngjae did. Okay, so with Trix's, there is something I do want to mention. Because he started in a crump pocket, I've already talked about this, I think in sub leader and maybe one with a duet. But when you look, this beginning looks great, but you also have to remember, he is top dog in crump in this group, right? So whenever you think about, if I'm looking and he's setting most of the posture into crump, I may be weary to pick his because it would be very difficult to beat. So you have to think about that too whenever you're really wanting to hone in on your style for a challenge. You have to think about the pros and cons of doing that. It's you look good, but will other people know you look good? And they want to kind of steer clear from that. Now, I will say this beginning was really nice. I like how he built it. It was good. Matched that percussion. Great. Then he brings it up. The hat comes off. So he turns into a more of like this hinged, not Joker-esque, but very, it takes a childish, like a childlike wonder approach like Youngjae did. Some of it's really simulating that. Yeah, so he's really trying to focus on the wordplay, but I want us to take a note here. What's interesting is that he has refused to use any aspect of this torso. It feels like he is strapped to a board. Like he is so tense here that even when you see him try to loosen up in his shoulders, it is so isolated. And you just notice that, and that's just what comes with when you train ISO. Sometimes your body just does that. Just even there, when he goes back, that body is still super stiff. Which can work in some cases, but it depends on how you frame those grooves, because if you're doing it too often, it looks like a limitation, right? Where you are trying to be dynamic, but because of this resistance that you subconsciously are doing, because I don't know if he realizes he's doing that, which, I mean, that just shows you how much he's trained in a particular pocket. It's so hard to get out of it when you're trying to explore other options, and that's why, you know, choreography sometimes can be really helpful. Learning other people's language and slang of movement can help you and unlock those pockets and dynamics. So honestly, I'm really glad that PRIMEKINGZ is on the show in general, because I think we get to see them exposed to so many different styles, like Alt-Day style, and then you see Wu-Tae style, and then you see who's the rookie? I think it was from WEDEMBOYZ, right? Kamel style. So yeah, so I like how he's using those choices, but even here, do you see how stiff he's activating in this torso, even with the shoulders? Yeah, and I think he's really trying to approach it with that kind of comical, gimmicky aesthetic, but a lot of it is not, it feels like he's dancing on top of the music, apart from the percussion that he hits with his crump posture. Even here, da-da-da, you know, even there's really not anywhere he's allowing his body to go. I'm really gonna hack it up to it's a subconscious thing that's happening. Yeah, he's also choosing to do really really predictable, not predictable choices, but choices that I think when he chooses to repeat by themselves, isolated, are not strong enough to hold attention for that particular part of the music. In the beginning, I think it was really great, but here I think that it started because we had already seen those kind of symptoms earlier on, because we saw it here. It doesn't really take us to a climactic place whenever you're wanting to try to approach things with this posture. So I can understand probably why this one did not get picked. I would probably cater this one around probably near the bottom, I think, because it doesn't feel like, because remember, if I'm thinking about how practical would this be if I said, hey Trix, I choose you, I want you to teach this to us, I don't know how comfortable I would feel learning these grooves, because when I saw him do it, it didn't feel like he was comfortable doing the grooves either. Regardless if that's the case or not, that's just how it appeared. And remember, I'm not really going off of emotional context, what emotionally was going on, the mental states, any of those things. I'm just looking at the content that is before me, and the only drama or anything that I knew affiliated with this particular part of the challenge was Vata's beginning choreo, which I have already spoken about. And remember, I am staying as neutral as possible with it, because at the end of the day, it happened. That's life, regardless of who's right and who's wrong. And what we can do is just moving forward to be very open to exchanging together and providing dancers an opportunity to showcase themselves as dancers and as artists, you know, in any multiple capacities, like being a K-pop idol or being a professional dancer or being able to be both, you know. I think that's really cool that we're able to see that in this context of Street Man Fighter specifically. I think it's really cool. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope I was helpful in some way. I know this one, I've been honestly, ever since I started reacting, I had a feeling that I would have to talk about some of the things I mentioned in this video. I just think it happened a lot sooner than I was expecting, and so I actually think it's really fun that I get to have discussions with you guys regarding what's been talked about, and I'm very excited to continue watching the series. This has been nothing short of incredible. There's been so many moments on this particular season of the show that I absolutely love. There's some battles that I've seen that just have rocked my world and made me just view the quality of what is capable on these shows just is really elevated to me to a new level, and I cannot wait to continue. Thank you guys again, and I will catch you on the flip side. Bye.